All right. So here's the first question. So when you were talking in the last episode about how you started with your environmental interests and how you and your parents went on camping and road trips, and that really helped spark what environmental interests you had and your passions with maybe doing something in the environmental field eventually. Do you think that your parents, because they were both teachers while you were growing up, do you think that also played a role into your decision to become an educator?
Yeah, it definitely did. For a long time, I mean, when I was really little, I wanted to be a teacher because that was the only job I knew, because that was the job both my parents did. And then I hit a point where I was like, I never want to be a teacher, because I remember them coming home and just like having to be up late grading papers all the time, and like grading papers on the weekends, and dealing with less than nice parents, and like just having to be stressed about standardized testing and everything like that. So those were all aspects of teaching I didn't like. But when I found out and kind of started learning what environmental education was, I was really excited about that, because it was teaching without all of the negative teaching stuff that I had like seen my parents work through. So yeah, they definitely influenced me, because I know they are really passionate about teaching, but I also got to
Mm-hmm.
see the less fun side at home. And so that made
Yeah.
me want to do more of the out of the box, more of the outdoor education, and less of like the traditional in the classroom teaching.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Are they both teaching right now?
They are, yeah. My dad's getting ready to retire. Um, he really is having a hard time with teaching during Corona.
Yeah.
Like he just misses interacting with students and having that
Mm.
kind of
That's such a
one-on-one time.
shame, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I imagine that they also played a role in like when you have to bounce questions off of them or when you're lesson planning and that kind of thing too, that they have helpful advice for what you're doing.
They were super helpful. And you might remember from the ELC, my mom was a Spanish teacher for a really long time and speaks Spanish fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't speak it. I wouldn't say I speak it at all. I can understand a little bit of it, but sometimes when we were trying to adapt some of our lesson plans to reach broader audiences, and we would like translate things in Spanish and stuff, I would definitely
Mm-hmm.
send those to my mom and be like, "Is this a good lesson plan? Am
Yeah.
I using these words right?"
I do remember that, and actually, it's funny because I did like the same thing with my older sister because she had a better Spanish background than I did at the time.
hmm It's always
Nice.
nice to have family like that.
Definitely. My mom is also teaching right now and also struggling a little bit with what that looks like virtually because it's just so different working with
Yeah,
kids
that's
online and
hard.
trying to get kids to get work done.
Yeah,
It's difficult. Yeah. All right.
definitely.
So another part of your video, you were talking about what was kind of like your aha moment for starting an environmental career. And like hearing about your experience with that park ranger was pretty inspiring to me anyway, because, as an educator, that's kind of what you want your moments to be to kind of inspire your kids to follow along similar paths of just doing things outdoors and stuff. And now that you're working in a similar type of position as a state park ranger outside of Moab, I was just wondering how different this position is just during the pandemic.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to experience working as a state park ranger during a non-pandemic time.
Yeah.
I just started this job in August, so I can't
Mhm.
really speak to what it was like before. But I do think that parks in general, whether it's like the city park level, as I mentioned before, when I was working for the City of Colorado Springs Parks Department, I definitely saw some changes there. So whether it's the city level, state level, national level, I'm sure, parks are just getting a huge amount of visitation right now, just because like it's the one recreational activity that's like considered pretty safe is, going outside and recreating outdoors. So even though there's a pandemic, we're super busy every day. I think part of it is people are working remotely now and kids aren't necessarily in school. And so Moab has been insanely busy. Our park has been really busy into the fall. So I'm not really sure what that will continue to look like as it gets a little bit colder into November and December, but it's looking like parks will just continue to be really busy as long as being outdoors is like the primary form of recreation people can do right now.
Yeah, that was so interesting how much it's spiked environmental interests and just people getting out to parks. Is
Hmm.
there some kind of limitation to how many people can visit at a time or anything like that where you are?
There are actually, basically for our park, it's limited based on parking spots, um, because, you know, once there's no more parking spots, it's really hard to go hike the trails. And
Hmm.
we don't want people to be parking off the side of the road and damaging the delicate desert soils and the plant life and everything like that.
Yeah.
So we pretty much limit it on parking spots. But what tends to happen for us is we're kind of in between Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park.
So
And so when
beautiful.
yeah, it's beautiful. So when those parks reach capacity, which for Arches has been like 9:30 a.m. right now, well, it's been busy. All those crowds that get turned away from their gates come to our park. So we've been seeing a lot of visitors, and we definitely reached capacity this last weekend when I was working on Saturday. So we just had to either turn people away or just tell them they'd have to wait in the line for a while until more people left the park.
Yeah. So what does your role look like right now? What are you doing?
So my official title is park ranger aide. So I'm essentially a park ranger, just seasonally.
Mhm.
And so it's really not glamorous.
It
I work
sounds
in,
like it just based on where you are.
well, it's beautiful. Yes, it's definitely
Yeah.
beautiful. But it is, you know, I work in the gift shop. I work in the entry station booth. I do some campground patrols. I clean a lot of bathrooms. So, and it's a little bit different because I think in national parks, they're bigger. And so they have a little bit more, I can't think of the right word. They divide up their jobs a little bit more. So
Mhm.
you have rangers that specifically do interp, and you have rangers that specifically do law enforcement. And then you hire separate people to do the maintenance and clean the bathrooms and that sort of thing. Here, as kind of a smaller state park, we get to do it all. So we get to do interp during, you know, non-COVID times, but we
Yeah.
also get to clean those bathrooms and sell entry fees and stuff. So
Just another thing to add to your resume. So there you go.
absolutely, yeah, it's a step in the right
Yeah.
direction.
Right. So before COVID and everything, and you started this new position, I know that you were working as an environmental educator and doing more interpretive lesson plannings at Canyonlands, right? Is that the Field Institute?
Yeah, so there's a small nonprofit in Moab called Canyonlands Field Institute.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So do you think that there were, well, I just want to say that there are also some teaching goals that you talked about that I think are really important, and that we'll bring into a larger conversation with Eileen and Julie when we have that conversation. But do you have like a personal approach to environmental education and teaching techniques that you use at Canyonlands, or just kind of a new way of approaching environmental education that you think is unique to yourself?
Well, I think speaking kind of broadly, I
Hmm.
think I mentioned previously the importance of looking at the big picture and having really that big end goal.
Yeah.
Um, I think at the ELC we might have called it like the 20,000 foot view or something like that. Just having those big end goals of, like, my main goal is to connect kids to nature, you know, so that they're out there getting to have those experiences, or they're learning how to respect nature, or
Hmm.
ultimately we're giving them the tools to respect nature. So one of the cool things at Canyonlands Field Institute was, my official title was a naturalist guide. So it's basically a combination of an environmental educator and a raft guide. So we got to do environmental education along the river, which was really cool. And part of that was teaching people, you know, how do we protect the river? What do we do with our waste? You know, how do we take it out with us? How do we leave the campsite looking better than we found it? So just giving kids and participants those tools is a really important part, I think, of my general approach to environmental education. Um, Beyond that, a little more specifically, I would say my teaching techniques are just getting kids to ask questions. And sometimes people don't know how to ask questions, which sounds a little silly. So you want to give them those right tools. And something we used to do, again, at Canyonlands Field Institute, or CFI to be simpler, we used to use I notice, I wonder, and it reminds me of statements. And so we would have kids practice, you know, turning to a partner when they're walking, and we would be talking about a plant or a lizard or whatever we'd find out there, and have them make statements that started with, I notice, I wonder, or it reminds me of. And it was so awesome to work with these kids for a whole week, because by the end of the week, they were just using these statements naturally to ask real, honest questions that they had, no longer prompted. And so it was really cool that they now had those tools to go out and ask those questions on their own.
Oh, that sounds really neat. So were a lot of those programs that you led week-long kind of trips with the same group of kids, and you just explore the canyonlands and go down the river? And wow, that sounds
Yeah,
like so much fun.
it was really cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that you can return to that position, or whatever ends up being the next thing. That I'm sure those techniques will definitely come into play in the future with your environmental education background.
Absolutely.
And everything. Let's see what we have next on the list. Oh yeah, so do you have specific ways that you prepare to teach your lessons, and what does your lesson plan process look like?
Yeah, so since I've had the opportunity to work with a couple different organizations doing environmental education, the ELC, CFI, worked in Colorado Springs, they all had kind of different lesson plan formats. But when it comes to my personal planning, just planning what I'm going to do for the day, they taught us at CFI this format where you kind of make a map of your plan for the day, which I found super useful because I'm a visual person. And it's really nice when you're in the middle of your day and you're like, I don't remember what I'm supposed to do next. And you can just open up your notebook and be like, okay, this is next on the agenda. And so I know this is a podcast, but I have my little like chart here. I found one of my old notebooks.
Oh, nice.
So I just would make kind of a circle and just like list each thing that I had planned next during the day, and maybe write the times or something on them of what I wanted to do.
So is
so
the
just like
planner
little
there,
notes.
is that the topic or whatever you'd be teaching at the time?
Yeah, so it'd be exactly. I'd have my topic right here in the middle. Like here you can see my topic. My theme for the day was humans and the environment. The next day was ancient engineering. And so then I would have my topic, my theme for the day, so I could always look at that and remember what my that 20,000 foot view picture was for that day. And then have all my different activities listed around the outside of the circle, so I would remember to hit everything I needed to do for the day.
And are those activities mostly like canned ones that you had at CFI, or were they hitting on specific objectives?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of them were ones that were already prepared in practice that we were pretty familiar with. We did have the opportunity to create some of our own new ones. And then within that, because we were with students for, 4 nights and 5 days, they definitely needed mental breaks and stuff. So I would also include like different games and kind of little mental breaks and times to recharge. I would also include that on my map.
Yeah, I imagine when you're planning for a full week that you have to think about a lot of different moving parts, and just kind of figure out, go with the flow as it goes. That's really interesting.
It was definitely really challenging, but a good challenge.
Yeah, it does sound like a fun time though. Is there a specific teaching experience that you'd like to share that was particularly memorable for you?
So this question was actually kind of challenging for me because I don't know, I've been lucky to have a lot of good teaching experiences, and it was hard to pick one that really stood out from the rest. One specific one was with CFI. We were planning to do a river trip on the San Juan. It was going to be like a 5-day trip, and everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And basically there was an incident with one of the trucks, and everybody walked away. Everyone was fine, but basically one of our trucks and one of our trailers with half of our rafts and half of our staff that were in the trucks were out of commission for the week. And so we had to spontaneously shift over to doing a field camp trip, so we had a property along the river outside of Moab that we would have our field camps at. So luckily we had that, and we had like tents and stuff that the students could stay in there. So it was just some different moving parts and some different planning to switch from going what was supposed to be a river trip to being a field camp trip. So that was kind of a spontaneous field camp trip with half the staff that we had thought we would have. But those teacher chaperones and those students were just very kind and understanding. They were very flexible. And we ended up having a great week, maybe because it was less planned and a little bit more flying by the seat of our pants. And I remember specifically the group of kids that I had. They were all just such characters. But one of the things we do during field camp trips is we have one day that is our hiking day. And so we do this big hike where we hike up to this big petroglyph, ancient rock art panel that we look at. And then we hike up this rock that we call Pride Rock because it looks like the rock from Lion King. But it is this pretty steep climb. And I remember one of my students was just pretty much close to tears. She was like, I don't know if I can do this hike. I don't know if I like the desert. And then when she got to the top, after a little bit of encouraging, it was just this like total mood change. She was so confident, so excited that she had been able to do that and join her classmates. So I think anytime I have a student that comes away from an experience feeling curious about the world around them and feeling confident enough to go out and explore the environment, and confident to voice their questions and be curious about nature, is any time that I would consider all those experiences pretty memorable and I don't know, pretty worthwhile.
That sounds like a really memorable and crazy week to have had all of that going on at once. And
yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I remember hearing about that story because, well, I think that might have been the year that you had graduated a semester early and still was on the staff, and so she was talking about those stories and like
oh my gosh,
getting a call from you or something like that, and wow.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, it sounded like a crazy week. All right, so you also talked about in the previous episode about incorporating different aspects of environmental education in more of a formal education setting. So how would you suggest that like techniques used and skills that are honed by environmental education be kind of incorporated for teachers to use within their classrooms?
Yeah, so I think kind of how I would envision teachers using environmental education or those different tools within the classroom. A lot of it, I think, is using what they have at their disposal. So I think one thing is teachers just need more time. I'm sure you mentioned your mom is a teacher as well. You've probably seen, I feel like teachers never have enough time. But just having that time to give students to explore, using any outdoor space that they have. I know not every school has that privilege of having an outdoor space, but even, putting funding towards community gardens or funding towards transportation to take kids to a local park or an open space or a natural area. So it's just kind of about where we're putting, I'm not tracking well with that. Just like where we're putting our funding kind of reflects our values as a society and as a school system. So a lot of it, I think, comes down to time and funding to be able to go out and kind of use environmental education. As far as specific techniques that they could use in the classroom, or kind of those skills that students gain from environmental education, I mentioned earlier, critical thinking and the ability to ask questions, I think, are huge parts of environmental education that are really important in a classroom setting as well. So even if you can't take kids outside, this is very specific, but something I really enjoy doing with students is nature journaling. And that's giving them the opportunity to write or draw if they want to, something that they've observed. It's really simple to do it with a leaf. You can ask them to label as much detail as they can, look at the color, look at the smell, use all their senses. And that could be as simple as a teacher bringing leaves into the classroom. And just encouraging students to make those detailed observations and ask questions. And I think those are the skills that can be developed in the classroom, even if they don't necessarily have access to going outside all the time. Sorry, that one was kind of rambly.
No, that was
That
great.
one was not great.
I think you brought up a lot of good points. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you've mentioned in the past that you went to kind of a smaller school in Colorado. Did you
Hmm.
see much of that kind of technique while you were in like public school?
I did in elementary school. I was very lucky. My elementary school was right along a little creek, and we had some big pine trees outside, and we had lots of grass, and we had a big boulder field we were not supposed to play on, but we always did. And we would find snakes in the boulders, and frogs and ducks along the creek. And when we had lockdowns, it was usually because there was a bear or a mountain lion on the playground, which is a pretty nice way to grow up. There are a lot scarier things you could have a lockdown for.
Right. Yeah.
And my dad actually worked at my elementary school, and he ran an after-school program called Creek Club, where they actually did some stream monitoring with fifth and sixth grade students, where they would go down and collect samples from the creek right behind the school, which was awesome because they didn't have to go anywhere. There was no transportation issue. And he likes to teach science, so he's able to use those skills for an after-school club. And again, like I said, it is a privilege to have a school that has that kind of access to nature. But I also think there are probably schools out there that have access to some natural areas that maybe aren't utilizing them like they could be.
Yeah. And that makes a really big difference. Wow. That is a really cool experience to have growing up, though.
Definitely.
Yeah. Were you a part of that club, the Creek Club?
Yeah, I was.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cool.
I think it's a funny dynamic to have a parent as your teacher as well.
Yeah, it's definitely strange. I don't know if I would recommend it for anyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was bad. When I was in his classroom, I would, if I really wanted his attention, I would call him Mr. Eick in front of the other kids, right? But if I really wanted his attention, I would say, Dad, which was very unfair to him because he would, of course, turn around immediately. So I feel bad to the other students, but we tried really hard to be non-biased.
Yeah, that's pretty funny though. All
Yeah.
right, are you ready for our lightning rounds?
Okay, yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so we've got 3 questions. The first is, what is some of the best advice that you have received?
The best advice I received is life happens when you're making plans, which I know I keep bringing up my parents somehow, but that's something my dad used to say all the time. But I also think it's a John Lennon quote. I don't know if my dad knows that. Yeah, but I think it's a good life quote, and it's good for environmental education too. You can only plan so much. Things don't always go according to plan.
Yeah, that is definitely a good environmental education quote. I like it. Okay, number 2. What is a book that you are reading right now or one that you would recommend?
I would recommend anything by Craig Childs. He's kind of a naturalist author, and he writes a lot of things about this area of the West, and especially Southeast Utah and kind of into Colorado as well. And I got to meet him. He was my celebrity crush. Just kidding. It was very awkward though, because I was a little too excited. But yeah, he's an amazing author. I would definitely recommend Animal Dialogues by him. Short little stories
Okay,
about different interactions he's had with wildlife.
sounds cool. When did you or how did you get the opportunity to meet him?
He came and spoke in Moab last October when I was working here.
Oh,
So I
cool.
attended his reading and got him to sign a book. I thought it was really cool. I was like, oh, no big deal. I'll just ask him to sign this book. And then I went up there and it was really embarrassing. I was like, will you please sign this book? And I was like panicked. So I was definitely more nervous
Yeah,
than I realized.
relatable. Yeah, that's awesome. I will
Yeah.
definitely have to check out those books. All right,
Mm-hmm.
number 3. What is your favorite bee pun?
Okay, so my favorite bee pun is a little known fact about buying bees. I mean, I'm sure you know this working for bee pods, right? When you order 12 bees, they always give you a 13th one for free. You don't have to worry about the cost. It is free because it's a freebie.
Uh, nice. Where did you hear that one from?
I honestly don't remember. It's just probably the most recent bee-related pun I've heard.
That's a good one. I like it. So, well, thank you so much for being on the show, Anna. And Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to be able to talk to you again and just have the opportunity to hear about your perspective on environmental education and what you're doing now and into the future, what environmental education will hold on for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much
Yeah.
for having me. I'm always excited to talk about environmental education and nature in general.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks, Anna. I'll talk to you again
Thanks,
soon.
Anna. Bye.
Bye.